Tom Campbell here. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. The links are in the description below. Thank you and enjoy the video.
Good afternoon, Tom. We're here with a few more questions that MBT Events receives, and it's a good way to put out answers to the questions one at a time. We may have different sections from other recordings in this section where we'll put all the questions together, but that'll work well. So these are my big toe question and answers. This question comes in from Graham. Tom, I know you're a vegan, and I'd like to go back to a vegan-vegetarian diet. Now, I know you're not a nutritionist, and someone, should always consult their doctor on what kind of diet they should have. But he would like to be a vegan again. He's concerned about getting enough B12 and protein and iron. What do you eat? How much do you eat, and how do you get these nutrients for yourself?
Yes, I would say I'm mostly vegan. I'm not hard over on any particular thing. So 99% of what I eat is probably vegan. So that's why I say I'm mostly vegan. But there's probably another 1% that it depends. When I'm traveling, not so much, because it's really hard to eat vegan when you travel, particularly because I also don't do a lot of carbohydrates. I not only don't do sugar for the carbohydrates, but I don't do spaghetti, and I don't do noodles, and I don't do rice, and I don't do very many, I stay away from potatoes. So if you take a vegan and then get rid of all the noodle dishes and pasta dishes, you see even if you go into a vegan restaurant, there's really not a whole lot to eat. So in some ways, I'm more restrictive than vegan, but in other ways, I'm not hard over that if there's something that if I need to eat, or if I'm out at someone else's home or something, I eat what's available, basically. Some things I would just avoid because they would make me feel ill, like sugar. I wouldn't eat anything sweet, like red meat. That would just, go to my stomach and cause a lot of trouble. I wouldn't feel good afterwards because my stomach no longer can digest that sort of thing because it hasn't had to for a long time. So there's some things that I would just say, no, thank you. But other things, like probably eggs and cheese, which are, not vegan. If I were out someplace and that's what was served, then I would eat it and let it go. Or if I couldn't find anything except, spaghetti or, mac and cheese or something like that, then I would eat it rather than, not eat at all. So mostly vegan, largely vegan. I eat mostly, now I just changed my diet quite a bit. I used to eat almost entirely raw foods, and I put them in a green smoothie. So I would get kale, and I would get spinach, and I would get turnip greens, and lots of other things. It's just whatever I go to several stores that they have organic produce, and whatever they happen to have that's organic produce, I will add that to it. Bok choy, collard greens. I don't know, I'm probably missing a few, but whatever's out there and whatever looks good. So, and I take all that, bring it home and grind it up in a grinder. I use water as the liquid, and that's what I would pretty much live on. Ground up, raw greens for the most part. I also eat avocados. I eat nuts and seeds, and let's see what else. I make a bean soup where I take a lot of organic canned beans with mostly no salt or very low salt, and I just empty the cans into a pot, and that's it. That's bean soup. That's all I do. It's my only ingredient. I put like 7 or 8 different kinds of beans, and I dump them all in a pot, and that's bean soup for a week. And I just ladle out, a couple of ladles of that and heat it up in a microwave, and that then is part of my diet. So mushrooms, onions can go in the bean soup as well.
Well, that's some pretty good protein. Of course,
Yeah.
beans, broccoli,
Yeah.
walnuts. You'd have to determine for yourself what levels of protein you need, and what other nutrients you need, and check on which of those foods is highest in iron
Okay.
and
Yeah.
B12. And there's always supplements, I guess, through a nutritionist. But
Yeah.
there's a rough diet.
Yeah, I
to
I love the onions. I don't eat the onions raw. Usually the onions I eat have been cooked,
Mhm.
sauteed, and mushrooms. I generally don't eat them raw either, except when I get them on a salad bar, but mostly I cook the mushrooms and eat those. But yeah, all that goes into the bean soup. So I also put organic olives in the bean soup, and sometimes in order to just throw in a little color, I might even put a can of organic corn in it, even though corn is a lot of carbohydrates. I wouldn't do that very often, but to add that, to have that 1 out of 8 cans making bean soup, then it just adds some color to it. So it's that sort of thing. That's how I eat. That's what I eat. And the change has been that Pamela has decided to do more cooking. So now I'm not eating green smoothies as much as I'm taking all of those same veggies and Pamela's cooking them, and I eat them cooked rather than raw and ground up in a green smoothie. Other than that, the rest of it's all about the same. The bean soup is the same, and so on. So I've gone from almost entirely raw to now probably 80% cooked veggies, and no particular reason for that other than Pamela decided she wanted to start cooking again. So that's the reason. And it's a little different because, I have read that in general, raw tends to maybe be a little more nutritious than cooked. But that depends, because the cooking process actually creates some nutrients. So you get more nutrients added if you cook it. On the other hand, the cooking sometimes destroys nutrients that you'd get if it's raw. So the cooking process, it adds some, it takes some away. And I heard that in general, you'll probably get a little more nutrition if you eat raw, but you really should eat a mixture of things, because then you get some of both. You get the stuff you get when you get cooked, the stuff you get when it's raw, and you should mix that up. Variety is very important. If you just eat one thing, if you just ate spinach and that's it, you had a spinach in a green smoothie or cooked spinach, and that's all you lived on, that would not be a good thing. It's better to have a very varied diet.
That's
like I say,
right.
nuts,
Diversity.
seeds, green vegetables. Pamela did a nice, not green at all, but carrots and parsnips, all organic. And that turned out very well. She occasionally will throw in a sweet potato, but only occasionally, because that's a little more carbohydrates than I want. So that's the way I eat. And I have never found any trouble with needing protein or needing any B12. So my point is, you don't need as much meat as you think. Your body did not evolve with meat as a fundamental source of, fundamental materials that it had to work with to provide the things that your body needs. That is the right raw materials for that biochemistry machine inside your body that produces all the things we really need. Now, I go to the doctor for a checkup, and they take my blood and urine and they look at it. And afterwards, one of the reports they give me is, are there any missing vitamins or nutrients or something? Does it show up in any of these tests? and B12 is one of them. And they always look at it and say, oh, B12, that's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And they go down the list and they see no problem with any of that. They don't see, oh, you've got a B12 deficiency or you've got protein deficiency. Everything's just fine. So I think most of that idea that you can't get B12 unless you eat meat and you need 100 grams of protein is not necessarily true. So I have not found it true. So I'm just talking.
Good.
Yeah,
I
just
mean,
talking
you've
about
tested it.
Yeah. So this is me. It's just the way I've done. So So what should you do? You're not me. Okay. So what should you do? You should just test it. I'd say be the vegan. Eat a varied vegan diet. Just don't go, eat a bag of spinach every day. That's not a good diet. Eat a good vegan diet. Include the nuts and seeds and beans and mushrooms and onions and all of that sort of thing, along with your veggies. Eat some raw, eat some cooked, and see how you feel. Go ahead and do the things you want to do. Now, let's say you were going to be a bodybuilder and that was your thing. You want to look like those guys on the magazines, where, they look like they have tiny little heads and great big muscles, because their body is so blown out of proportion with big muscles. Well, then you probably need to eat more protein. But if you would just like to be strong, then you don't need all that extra protein. If you're not trying to bulk up, then even if part of your day is running 10 miles or lifting weights or doing other things, you don't need a lot of extra protein. You will get a lot of protein in the veggies that you eat, in the beans, in the nuts, in the seeds. They come with protein, and it's enough protein to get you by. Now, I guess being a bodybuilder and wanting, huge muscles, that's probably not true. You probably do have to eat extra protein if you're going to go that way. But other than that, I think the normal amount of protein you get is probably good enough.
Well, thank you for that. Of course, you have to test out for yourself the levels of protein and things that you do need. But I know your vegan diet is very restrictive in that you restrict sugar and carbohydrates. So that's a difficult one. But you're looking and feeling great, and you're having these things measured and tested, and that's what everyone should do. Not everyone's the same.
So it works for me, yes. And and I, like I say, I have a much more restrictive diet than most vegans. Most vegans eat lots of sugar and sweet stuff and lots of pasta and noodles and cheese. Well, not cheese, but noodles and that kind of thing. And I don't eat really any of that, at least not very often. Only when I have no other choices do I generally eat that. So I think it's easier than you're thinking that it is. Just eat a good diet and see what happens. I think you'll find that everything will work out just fine.
Make sure you get enough calories for your height and your weight and your activities and things like that.
Well, look up BMI, right? That's a BMI index. It's a body mass index. Mm-hmm. And the body mass index, you put in your height and you put in your weight, and some of them you even put in your age and sex, but mostly it's just height and weight, and it will tell you whether you're in the green part, which is good, the yellow and orangey part, which is okay but not so good, or the red part, which is terrible. And you can find those if you just Google BMI and chart. You'll find that on the internet from probably 100 different places. You just pick one and look at it, put your height in there, put your weight in there, and see. And for most people, just the average person out on the street, if they do that, they will see that actually their weight is too high. Their BMI numbers need to come down. Most of us are carrying more weight than we need. So do that and see if after 6 months or a year of being on your vegan diet, see if your weight doesn't come down to where you're right in the middle of that green area. At least that is what mine did. My weight now basically is the same weight as I had when I was 17, 18, 19. I stayed this weight probably until I was out of college. Then I got married and put on 20 pounds, which is kind of a typical story for young men. But now I'm back at that same weight again. So I'm 6 feet tall and I weigh around 160 pounds. And if you look that up on BMI, that's right square in the middle of the green space.
Ideal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is.
So
All right.
anyway, that's my experience. You have to work it out for yourself in your own way, because your biology isn't going to be identical to mine. And your biology will change some, but stay positive. Don't have a negative idea. Oh, I'm not getting enough protein. How am I going to get that B12? Because if you have those thoughts themselves will create the problems of not having enough of those. Your intentions will create that possibility. That possibility will have a higher probability because you're worried about it. So don't worry about it. Just see what happens. Do it for 6 months and see what happens at the end of 6 months.
Okay, well, there you go, Graham. So thank you, Tom. I'll go on to the next question this is one that we've received by our email. And this is from Anthony. Tom, lots of love to you. My question is, I'm wondering what has caused my body and consciousness to have become seemingly very out of balance in the past 2 years. I feel a lot of bliss and surrender in my experience now, but my body still has a lot of blockages. 2 years ago, I took up the practice of Kriya Yoga and raising Kundalini up my spine as per tradition with a guru. This seems to coincide with when the instability started 2 years ago. So I'm wondering what the correlation is with that and whether I should continue or stop these practices. Can you give me any advice on how to achieve more balance with my energies? I feel so much in my crown chakra and not so much elsewhere. Maybe I'm misunderstanding this process, so I'd really appreciate any advice for my situation and my future on this beautiful journey. Thank you. Now, this is someone who is working with a guru and has the metaphors of the chakras and things like that.
Right.
Is there anything that you can advise this person?
Sure. First of all, you are a unique individual, and your own path is no doubt going to be optimized if it is custom made for you. So when you become part of an organization that has certain ways of doing things and certain ways to do them and certain goals and so on, that may suit you or it may not. So one thing to think about, and probably go talk to your guru about it and say, look, since I've been doing this, I've had these problems, and see what advice you get. If he's good and he sees that you're having problems with it, he may give you good advice on what to do about it. So that'd be the first thing, is I'd say talk to your guru and see what he says about the problems you're having. All right, so the second thing that I would say is that, the chakras are tools. They're not fundamental. Just like light workers use beams of light to heal. The beams of light are tools. There are really no fundamental beams of light that you can use. So there are fundamentally no chakras. These are just tools that have been created to help people understand and apply conscious intent to their own evolution, to their growth. So it breaks it up into pieces. It breaks it up into steps. It says, okay, we have these chakras, and they have different things, and you can focus your intent on various chakras and various things. So it kind of breaks the whole process down into a series of steps that then a practitioner or a guru can help you go through those steps. But that is a particular belief system, a particular set of tools for growing the quality of your consciousness. There are other ways and other processes and other tools. And the thing is, you need to find the processes and the tools that suit you best. Okay? And those may change. You may get a whole lot out of an approach through the chakras up until a certain point, and then it may be better for you to try something else. Or you may have started with something else and find out then using the chakra method is enable you to go on further. You see, you don't know unless you try, unless you explore different paths. But that is just one path. That is not the path. It's a tool set. It's a way of slicing and dicing, the facts of consciousness to make it simpler for people to grow up, to make it simpler for people to understand, to have a model that they can use in which they can process, because we people are doers. And growing up is about being, not about doing. But we want to do something. Give me a prescription. Tell me what to do, you see. So we need to create these tools and these systems to give people things to do to help them grow up. But doing is not the thing. Being is the thing. And there's lots of different ways to approach changing the quality of your being. And the one you're in is just one of those. And if it doesn't suit you, there's no problem with stepping out of it. You can always return to it. So that's another thing. But your guru can maybe tell you, he should be aware of all of that. He should be aware that this is a tool set that's being used. Hopefully he has that bigger picture, that he knows that that's the way it is. These things are not really fundamental. And he should be very sensitive to your problems. So I'd say talk with him and see what he says. But go search for something. If you're finding problems, and those problems are associated with your raising Kundalini, then stop. I'd say stop. It's never good to just push on through things. If you're having problems, that usually is telling you that you maybe need a little different approach, or you need to go a little slower, or there's maybe another thing you have to do first. It's telling you something. Well, if there's something else you have to do first, then pushing ahead anyway is just not a good idea. So you can push gently on things, but if they don't yield, or if what they yield are problems, then it's time to have another look, back up, and do some more experimenting. It's not like you can't come back. Mm-hmm. You see, if it turns out that you go out and get that other step that you have, and then maybe that you need, then maybe you won't go back to it, or maybe not. Maybe you'll find some other path that works just as well.
These blockages, perhaps, that he's experiencing may be a signal to step back and work on something else before you try to proceed or look for something else.
Well, if you work on becoming love, if you work on being kind, not acting kind, but being kind, if you work on getting rid of your fear, then everything else just happens. Everything else just comes along all by itself. You don't need a concept of chakras. You don't need a concept of Kundalini. You don't need any of those concepts if you just get rid of your fear. Once you get rid of your fear, what's left is love. And you then be a being of love, have a high quality of consciousness, and you don't need to climb that particular ladder or any other particular ladder. So you can get there just by dealing with your own fear. That's the kind of the direct path. So maybe your difficulties and your blocks are telling you it's time to move to something else. Well, try that. And if the something else doesn't work, then try something else again. And if that doesn't work, well, maybe you want to go back then to the thing that you were doing in the first place and see if you still have those blocks. You see, don't think of this as something you need to fix in the next couple of months or in the next couple of weeks. This growing up is a lifetime process. You've got years and years and years to figure it all out. So if you spend some time just searching and experimenting and trying to figure out what's best for you, that's okay. It's not like, oh, I don't want to do something suboptimal because it'll waste my time. You're not going to waste your time. You're going to be learning and growing the whole time. So take the long view. You got to think, where do I want to be in 20 years from now? Who do I want to be, a decade from now? And if you take 2 or 3 years to go try this and go try that and experiment and maybe just work on your fears and see how that works for you, it'll all work. So instead of having that directed Kundalini experience, you'll have something that will do the same thing. You'll end up in the same place. You'll just take a different route. You won't use those metaphors. You'll have different metaphors, but you'll get to the same place. All these paths point in the same direction. So find one that's more beneficial for you and realize that just getting rid of your fear, that's the key thing. Everything else is process and games and tools to help you get rid of your fear, get rid of your ego, get rid of your beliefs. And anything that isn't helping you get rid of your fear, ego, and beliefs is irrelevant. It's just useless process that's maybe part of some tradition, but it's not really relevant.
All right, thank you, Tom. That's good advice.
Tom Campbell here. I and MBT Events hope you liked this video. We now have well over 1,000 hours of free video on this user-friendly, ad-free YouTube channel. Though these videos are free to our viewers, they represent many thousands of hours in production and editing, and many thousands of dollars invested in video and audio equipment, along with the required computers and software to store and process the raw video into finished products. So far, all of this content has been funded directly out of our own pockets. Be assured, we will always continue to do what we can. It's our life, our purpose, a labor of love that we will continue to pursue as best we can. However, those pockets are not as deep as they used to be. Thus, we are now seeking to augment our resources with support from our viewers. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our newly created Patreon account or through a one-time donation. The links are in the description below. Thank you.